It's time to talk about Revenge of the Sith. This is where my Star Wars journey began. This is the first Star Wars media I experienced, and it was almost my last, were it not for some very persistent friends who said, no, you must continue on. You can't just stop here. Then I would have done, because I was quite simply too depressed after reading Anakin's fall to want to see him as Darth Vader in the next movies. So if you haven't seen that video, linked, or playlist, I guess, linked below. In this video, we're going to talk about Palpatine. If you've watched my other videos, you know, big fan of Palpatine and his incredible mastermind. We're going to talk about Obi-Wan and his relationship with Anakin. We'll talk about Palpatine and Obi-Wan as mentors to Anakin and how very different they were. And finally, we're going to talk about Anakin and his spiral, his undoing, his demise. So many options to talk about there. Palpatine is a brilliant character. I talked about him some at the end of my last video where I talked about movie 2, how I would have really loved to just see him take the forefront of the movie and be our main focus, watching him rise in the ranks and in power and in authority, and see more of his masterful planning on screen or on page. And as opposed to putting so much emphasis on Anakin and his romance, instead we could just put emphasis on Palpatine's rise as Anakin descends into his obsession. I probably said it better in my last video, but you get the point. Palpatine, in this movie, we see far more on the forefront all the master manipulating that he's doing of Anakin, of the Senate, of the Jedi Order, constantly around every corner. He's changing his story slightly. He's adjusting according to the audience that he has in the moment. He's pulling the strings so that he continues to have ultimate dictatorial power while everyone claps. We watch liberty fall to great applause, as Padme put it. Palpatine is respected, he is loved, in a sense he's almost idolized, and he has everyone underneath his thumb. He promises Dooku the world. Just play the villain for now, and eventually we'll demolish the Jedi Order to create it anew. It'll be free of being shackled to the politicians, and instead we will rule with true authority. No more negotiation. They would enforce. And the Jedi Order would become the Sith army. And Dooku would be at the head of it. They just need Anakin on their side first. He gaslit him into this plan, gaslit him into trying to clear Obi-Wan out the way so he can properly break Anakin, and then he betrayed him and convinced Anakin into making him his first cold-blooded, eyes wide open, calculated murder, thereby breaking Anakin a bit more and clearing the way to have the apprentice that he truly wanted. This is a quote from Dooku right before he dies. His whole life, all his victories, all his struggles, all his heritage, all his principles and his sacrifices, everything he's done, everything he owns, everything he's been, all his dreams and grand vision for the future empire and the army of the Sith have been only a pathetic sham. Because all of them, added up only to this. He has existed only for this. To be the victim of Anakin Skywalker's first cold-blooded murder. First, but not, he knows, the last. Then the blades crossed at his throat, uncrossed like scissors, snip, and all of him becomes nothing at all. Palpatine was at the core of the Separatists. Palpatine was at the core of the clone army. Palpatine was at the core, at this point, of the Republic. He was pulling the strings in every direction. Everyone thought they could trust him. Most everyone thought they could trust him. And everyone was wrong. It was always only about power. And to watch him manipulate on this grand scale, but also on the myopic scale of the individual and getting in their minds, understanding what truly makes them tick, what makes them stumble, and press on that for his own benefit, for his own gain. That is the mastery of Palpatine. And this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, a phenomenal pilot who doesn't like to fly, a devastating warrior who'd rather not fight, A negotiator without peer who frankly prefers to sit alone in a quiet cave and meditate. And Obi-Wan knows, too, that to have lived his life without being master to Anakin Skywalker would have left him a different man, a lesser man. Anakin has taught him so much. It's as though Anakin has rubbed off on him a bit and has loosened that clenched jaw insistence, that absolute correctness that Qui-Gon always said was his greatest flaw. Obi-Wan Kenobi has learned to relax. He smiles now, and sometimes even jokes, and has become known for the wisdom gentle humor can provide. Though he does not know it, his relationship with Anakin has molded him into the great Jedi Qui-Gon always said he might someday be. He is modest, centered, and always kind. He is the ultimate Jedi. And he is proud to be Anakin Skywalker's best friend. Obi-Wan is an incredibly noble person. He's skilled, he's powerful, he's intelligent, and he has integrity that makes him well trusted by pretty much everyone that knows him. He's ripe to be the type of person that would seek power, but instead he's the type of person that does what needs done according to his duty, does what needs done according to being able to protect the people, but ultimately doesn't really revel in any of it, doesn't take pride or arrogance in his successes. He has so much wisdom to give Anakin, and oftentimes does throughout the story, will remind him, I think the quote is something along the lines of, clinging to what might be is a path to destruction. And there's even some conversation about we can end up being the author of our own demise if we cling so tightly to trying to prevent something to the point that it consumes us and alters us. All along, the advice is there. It's being given to Anakin, but he's so blinded by his own fear that he can't see past it. But even with all that wisdom and with all that power and ability and notoriety that Obi-Wan has, it's his love for Anakin that I think stands out so much in this dichotomy between Obi-Wan and Palpatine as Anakin's two masters. To Obi-Wan, yes, he has a lot that he can teach Anakin, and he wants to continue to press him because he does see Anakin's lack of control. He does see his obsession, he does see his disobedience, and he wants to help Anakin discern what to do, but he also values Anakin as an individual so much that he's learning from him as well, that he views him as his partner, and even admits that Anakin would die for Obi-Wan rather than obey orders. He would risk his life, disobey orders to save Obi-Wan, and he would do the same for Anakin. This stringent rule follower, stick in the mud, who's slowly being softened by Anakin's strong will that very much is like his old master Qui-Gon, like Obi-Wan's old master Qui-Gon was. Even though he's being softened by knowing Anakin and working with him, he would still throw away all of his loyalty, all of his dedication, all of what he stands for if it meant saving Anakin's life. At least he thinks he would. Anakin as he stands at the beginning of the movie, I think he would. This then is Obi-Wan and Anakin. They are closer than friends, closer than brothers. Although Obi-Wan is 16 standard years Anakin's elder, they have become men together. Neither can imagine life without the other. The war has forged their two lives into one. Anakin and Obi-Wan would never fight each other. They couldn't. They're a team. They're the team, and both of them are sure they always will be. Obi-Wan was his brother, his moral guide, his teammate and instructor. He will die next to Anakin if he needs to, but he also will push Anakin and challenge him where he needs it. Palpatine is also family to Anakin. He's always there, always caring, always gives advice, sympathetic, unconditional acceptance of Anakin exactly as he is. And he understands Anakin. He understands his secret heart, his desires, his needs, actually. He's not gonna get some silly advice about controlling his emotions. No, he can help Anakin take control of the future and bend it to his will. Palpatine plays on Anakin's objection to play politics that the Jedi are kind of forcing him to play. He knows Anakin's love for Padme, and he tempts him with the possibility to control life and death. Obi-Wan knows about Padme too, but Obi-Wan pretends not to know for the sake of their friendship. Palpatine knows Anakin's love for Padme, he knows about their relationship, and he's going to convince him that he has a solution to solve everything. And he uses that as a manipulation point too. I've always known about this. I know about your relationship, and I can help you. I accept you as you are. I have no problem with this choice that you've made. I'll help you be able to have it even more fully. Obi-Wan too knows about their relationship. He's perfectly aware, and he just keeps it quiet, despite it being against the Jedi Order rules, despite it being a lie that Anakin is telling him, essentially, by omission. But he pretends that he doesn't know, and he's happy to, because it makes Anakin happy. Palpatine babies Anakin to an extent. He strokes his ego, he tells him, you don't deserve to be treated this way, you deserve the world. Actually, you want to be with Padme? You should. You want more respect and honor within the council? You should, or within the Jedi Council, you should have it. You want the answers to get anything you want? To defy the Force? To defy nature and reality? Good. Let's find it together. Obi-Wan wants Anakin's happiness as well, but he pushes him to be a better version of himself. He pushes him to have more control, to have more maturity and thought for the bigger picture. Palpatine says, focus on yourself. Look inward. What do you want? Pursue that with everything you have. And Obi-Wan tries to teach him to consider something wider. These are two people that Anakin considers to be as good as family to him that are nurturing him in very different ways. Obi-Wan as a brother, Palpatine as a manipulator, as someone who's trying to elevate the things that make Anakin more selfish and therefore more vulnerable, and then twist them and manipulate them so that they can be used for his devices. And then he reveals that he's the Sith Lord that they've been looking for. This is world-altering for Anakin, but keep in mind that Palpatine has successfully driven a wedge between him and Obi-Wan. He's shaken his trust in the Jedi Council, and he's compounded his desperation to not lose Padme. He's forced Anakin into a position of complete dependence on him before he reveals that he's the Sith. Now remember that Anakin hasn't slept in days. He's avoiding sleep because he is avoiding these nightmares that he keeps having, these visions of the person that he loves more than anyone else in the world dying, and the helplessness, the hopelessness that he feels in this situation. There's nothing he can do. He wants to become a master so that he can have access to the archives that have more information that might provide some sort of solution to save Padme. But the Jedi Council sees his recklessness, they see his lack of control, they see the threads of the dark side getting deeper in him, and so they don't give him as much power as Palpatine is telling him you should have. Let me give you more access. Let me elevate you higher. You're the only one that I can trust. You're the only one that deserves this. So now Anakin is completely desperate. The one that he loves more than anyone else in the world is going to die if he doesn't intervene. And every time he sleeps, he's reminded of this horrible fate that's descending on him rapidly, and he still doesn't have an answer. So he's stopped sleeping. He's searching for answers. He's so hyperfixated that he's barely eating either. He's at his most fragile point, both physically and mentally, and he's been slowly isolating himself from everyone that he loves because he's losing trust in them as Palpatine is continuing to twist every situation into they're the enemy, you can only trust me. And all of his hope is hinging on the solution that Palpatine can provide for him. He doesn't trust the Jedi Council anymore. He's wavering in his trust toward Obi-Wan. He needs Palpatine to protect the one person that he's devoted everything to protect. He's at his most vulnerable place physically, mentally, emotionally, entirely dependent on Palpatine. And then Palpatine drops this line. After all, Anakin, you are the last man who has a right to be angry at someone for keeping a secret. What else was I to do? Who said anything about being evil? I'm bringing peace to the galaxy. Is that evil? I'm offering you the power to save Padme. Is that evil? Have I attacked you? Drugged you? Are you being tortured? My boy, I am asking you. I am asking you to do the right thing. Turn your back on treason, on all those who would harm the Republic. I'm asking you to do exactly what you have sworn to do. Bring peace and justice to the galaxy. And save Padme, of course. Haven't you sworn to protect her, too? And then he hones in on Anakin's core instinct of loyalty. Perhaps it's simply a question of whether you love Obi-Wan Kenobi more than you love your wife. The book elaborates a lot on Palpatine's personal relationship with and personal conversations with Anakin. Forgot his name for a second. It adds a lot of dialogue to kind of tease out the gaslighting that Palpatine was doing to get in Anakin's head and really twist the knife everywhere he can to manipulate him to go in the direction that he wanted him to go. But all that's there in the movie as well. It may not use as much dialogue, or it may use more cheesy dialogue sometimes. Not so much with Palpatine. I love Palpatine in the movies, but the book just kind of elaborates what's already there. It's just teasing out those conversations where he's putting seeds of doubt in Anakin's mind, where he's forcing him, pushing him into complete and utter dependency on himself, where he's convincing Anakin that there really isn't any other choice but what Palpatine, the path that Palpatine is presenting to him, unless you don't love your wife as much as you love the Council or Obi-Wan. We're gonna circle back to that. We're gonna finish talking about this scene, but first we need to talk about Anakin. Anakin is a person of loyalty above just about anything. He would do anything to protect those that he cares about. He is a Jedi and loves the Jedi Order and believes in the Jedi way, but he will, without thought, disobey any order if it means protecting the people that he cares about the most. Loyalty, I would say, is Anakin's key defining character trait, but he's also riddled with fear. And unfortunately, that fear and that pain that he's experienced is what drives him. Anakin was born a slave, separated from his mother at the age of 9 or 10. 9. Spent a decade apart from her, knowing that she was still enslaved, knowing that she likely hadn't found a better life. She did, but he didn't know. And then when he finally came back to her, he was too late. Just barely too late. From his perspective, the reason she died in his arms is because he wasn't enough. Even though he was strong, even though he was powerful, even though he was the chosen one, he wasn't fast enough, he wasn't strong enough, he wasn't able to be there for her. But if he had just been a little bit faster, if he had just been there a little bit sooner, then maybe she wouldn't be gone. He puts that completely on his shoulders, and now his fear that drives him, that captures him, that suffocates the life out of him, is that for the rest of his life, he won't be fast enough. That's what it was like to not be quite good enough. It could happen anytime, any place, if he was a few minutes late, if he let his attention drift for a single second, if he was a whisker too weak, any place, anytime. HoloNet features call him the hero with no fear. And why not? What should he be afraid of? Except fear lives inside him anyway, chewing away the firewalls around his heart. Anakin sometimes thinks of the dread that eats at his heart as a dragon. Not long after he became Obi-Wan's Padawan, all those years ago, a minor mission had brought him to a dead system. One so immeasurably old that its star had long ago turned to a frigid dwarf of hyper-complicated trace metals, hovering a quantum fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Anakin couldn't even remember what the mission might have been, but he had never forgotten that dead star. It had scared him. Stars can die? That is the kind of fear that lives inside Anakin Skywalker, the dragon of that dead star. It is an ancient, cold, dead voice within his heart that whispers, "All things die." Anakin was gripped with terror of losing another family member, another person that he loved like family, of losing someone that he cared about, of not being enough to be able to save them again. And then he starts having visions of his wife dying the same way that he had visions of his mom. Anakin was already one that followed his passions above duty. We saw that already in Attack of the Clones. He was conflicted and in turmoil, but ultimately he was following his heart. He was following his passions. He was following what he loved and cared about most. Now here he is, about to lose all of it the same way that he lost his mom, his greatest trauma of his life, the thing that haunts him. He's having those same visions now about his wife. He was so desperate. beyond desperate. And no one understood how torn apart he was. He was literally breaking right in front of us. One of the best scenes in the movie to me is when Obi-Wan and Yoda walk in on the slaughtered younglings, and Obi asks, "Who could have done this?" And then it cuts to Anakin continuing his slaughter, but now we see the agony in his face and in his voice as he calls out. We see that he is personally killing an essential piece of himself as he does this. Then later we see him look back over what he's done with a look of resolve on his face, but a tear running down his cheek. It's tearing him apart, but he's made his choice. And then we come to the final conclusion. Anakin versus his brother, his mentor, his best friend, Obi-Wan. When Padme arrived, Anakin ran to her. All his pain and murder was to save her life. It didn't matter if the world burned down. It didn't matter if he was killing himself. He could overthrow Palpatine later and set it right again, but only if Padme could live too. But she said that Obi-Wan told him of what he'd done. And then she spoke to him and saw for herself that it was true, and she couldn't follow him anymore. It's not just that he had turned to the dark side that made Anakin fight Obi-Wan. It's that after everything, Obi-Wan had turned Padme against him. Palpatine took everything from him and gave him only his hope to save Padme. And then Obi-Wan, from Anakin's perspective, took Padme from him too. He was already so fragile. He was already so broken and bleeding. He had already killed so much of himself. How could he not spiral into his most hate-filled self after that? But Obi-Wan could see what was really happening. He could see that Anakin had been played by Palpatine to the point of turning pure evil himself. And now Obi-Wan too had to personally kill an essential piece of himself in order to fight his brother. But he made his choice. Anakin made his for the sake of himself. Obi-Wan for the sake of anyone that he could save. I think the scene where Obi-Wan quietly checks on Padme while Anakin continues to spiral says so much of the state of mind that Anakin is in. Sure, she's not moving, but he can just bring her back to life, right? He's found the solution to everything, right? It's a tragedy watching him be backed into a corner and then fall. And then a tragedy watching everyone that loves him most have to fight him in order to save the world from him. The quote at the beginning of the book says, "It's a story of love and loss, brotherhood and betrayal, courage and sacrifice, and the death of dreams. It is a story of the blurred line between our best and our worst. It is the story of the end of an age." Anakin believed that no matter what happened to Padme, he could save her from death, but it was his all-consuming fear that led him to hate that led to her death. I think the difference in the masters that Anakin saved is very clear. Obi-Wan would do anything for Anakin, and it killed him to have to face him this way. It killed him what Anakin had turned himself into, what he had become. But ultimately, at the end of the fight, where he couldn't actually kill Anakin, he went back for Padme. He tried to save her. He did everything that he could, and it is because of Obi-Wan that their two children survived. Palpatine did save Anakin for his own purposes, but he never cared about saving Padme. In fact, it's better for him that she died. One more tie severed so that Palpatine is all he has. But we are still given a glimmer of hope. The dark is generous, and it is patient, and it always wins. But in the heart of its strength lies weakness. One lone candle is enough to hold it back. Love is more than a candle. Love can ignite the stars. I made a concerted effort not to repeat very much in this video that I said in my initial video where I took you through my journey of falling in love with Star Wars. And in that video, I talked a lot about the Revenge of the Sith, and so I really made an effort not to repeat very much, but instead to talk about this from another angle. And quite frankly, I had to cut a ton of notes because there's a lot more that I would like to talk about, because this book, while I said it elaborates on a lot, it also just creates so much depth scenes that are drawn out far more, character motivations that are explained very thoroughly. The way the Force works in this book, it's so tactile, it's so tangible, and it's so unique to the individual. And I think that each use of the Force, each way in which we see the Force manifest in the individual is a reflection of the individual. I had a whole section of the video talking about this, but I ended up cutting it because it removed the focus from what I really needed to be talking about. If you have any interest whatsoever in reading any Star Wars book at all, I really highly recommend this book. Granted, I haven't read that many Star Wars books, but I really recommend this book. Even if you're not a big reader, if you want to do the audiobook, do. This is the book that made me fall in love with Star Wars and the characters, and truthfully, I don't know that my love for the story could be the same were it not for this book. I wish Matthew Stover had written every Star Wars book, or at least all of the novelizations of the episodes. Oh, that would bring me so much joy. Either way, I really wanted to focus on this video. I mean, do watch the other if you haven't and you'd like to see me talk more about Revenge of the Sith, because I do more there, but more of it as a whole. But in this video, I really wanted to focus more on Anakin's personal journey to destruction, his character descent, his unraveling, and the tragedy that unfolds in so many directions because of it. I've heard it said, and I don't know if this is a popular perspective, but it was said by a friend of mine, so I took personal offense at it. I've heard it said that Anakin's dissension, his character dissension, was kind of like a snap. Like it was so abrupt that it didn't feel realistic. And that perspective hurts my heart. I think from really episode 1, but especially from episode 2 forward, we see a character that is so gripped by pain and fear and trauma, as well as a young man that is so led by following his passions and desires, as well as a vulnerable orphan who has attached himself to someone that his only intent is manipulation. It's a tragedy. It breaks my heart. And these movies have a lot of green screens and a lot of special effects that aren't always great, and a lot of really cheesy dialogue. Whoa, but that core story, man, it kills me. You know who else I really enjoy in this book is Mace Windu. He gets so much characterization. Okay, so I really highly recommend the book. I recommend the movie. You're here, so you've seen it. I'm now done with the prequels. I'm very excited to move on to reading and talking about the originals. But even though the prequels are quite flawed, I have so enjoyed just spending a lot of time digging into Anakin's story. I hope you have too. I hope you have enjoyed these videos. As I said, we're moving on to the originals, so it's not like they're over or anything, but please chat with me more in the comments if you have more that you want to talk about. I'll see you again soon. Bye.